Men, the masculine, is designed to protect and to provide. Some woke ass people were like, yeah, that's the old school. We don't need that anymore. I'm like, yeah, you're blind as a bat if you think that. We don't need that anymore? I hope to God we never need that. But we may very well fucking need that. And they may not be here because we're not creating men anymore. We're creating fucking boys. 85% of human beings are not self-aware. And because they're not self-aware, they continue to make the same decisions over and over again and create the same human fucking behaviors. We're just at a crescendo right now where society is either gonna fucking collapse or we're gonna figure this shit out. Because we're on a grand stage now, we're on a world stage. It isn't isolated to a single country, the whole world is involved. So if we don't figure this thing out, it isn't gonna collapse a single country, it's gonna collapse the entire fucking system. But if 1 in 10 wakes up, the cumulative effect of that will wake everyone else up. So that's what I'm looking for, exponential. 1 in 10 is all you need. If you can get to 1 in 10, right, we can start to move the needle, which is why I'm very hopeful at 85%, we got numbers we can work with. I was done with this plane of existence. I was fucking done, I'm over it. I was like, sign me back up, Billy Bob, I'll go run this one back one more fucking time. My entire reason for being here is to shake people awake. This is our moment. And I'm doing it by, instead of bringing people to an institution, is bringing the truth to the people. By bringing them into a business that will teach you how to make a living while teaching you how to take care of you in your life for the rest of your life. Versus the education system right now, what happens? Well, you don't learn how to take care of yourself, that's sure as shit. And you go into debt, $100,000. Guess what's the only debt you can't get out of if you file bankruptcy? Student fucking debt. It's indentured servitude if you've ever seen it. Y'all know that? If you go into student debt, there's no getting out of it unless you try to vote somebody in who's gonna fucking write it off for you. Is if somebody put a gun to your head and told you to go into debt for a college degree. So this is investment in loss on the short term, which is always the case. And as I've talked about many times before, wealthy people are constantly looking for asymmetrical risk to reward. So they're always looking for the imbalance, more reward for less risk. Poor people tend to have that reversed. They take the biggest risk for the least likely reward. That's an obvious example of that. Gambling. In a world where it's never been easier to make money, why the fuck would you illegally do it? There's so much money floating around in our world right now, and it's looking to be put to work, that it's like, why would you do it illegally? It's too easy to do it legally. But what does it involve? What do you have to do? Not just work. The labor work is a holdover from the Industrial Revolution, and our education system was largely programmed. It's a Prussian style of education that was meant to create worker bees, which helped the US economy become what it is and change the world. But still people look at labor, they're trading time for money. What I'm trying to teach you is to get away from time from money as fast as you fucking can. If you're trading hours for a paycheck, you're this world's version of a slave, right? There's no getting out of that. That's a fucking shitty place to be. What you want to do is get to a point where you're getting paid for your skills and the value you bring, not for the hours you're putting in. Does everybody see the difference? Which is why I highly advocate for business owners, because it is very hard to get ahead as a W-2 employee. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just very hard, statistically very hard. It's not the bet I would make. So this is the work, and that's the model. That's literally your model to financial freedom right there. If you memorize that, just use that, you're good. So what does it start with? At this point in your life, where do you need to double down? Skills. Now, most people do just enough. Why do they do just enough? Where were they taught that? School. Because school was what? A means to an end. Go to school, get good enough grades to pass the class, and move on. And most people didn't go to school to learn, they moved to pass the fucking class. So then you go into the real world, and the real world goes, motherfucker, I don't care if you can do this once. What can you do every single day consistently? And you're like, what? I gotta do this every day? The fuck? Nobody taught me that. I thought I'd pass the class and I move on. Yeah, no. The real world's a little bit different. Nobody cares what you can do once. What can you do daily? Which is why, if you're on my group you see me say this all the time. It's not what we do once, but what we do daily. Wealth creation is a cumulative effect of making small little decisions daily that compound over time, which is why it isn't sexy. It's why social media drives me nuts. And I refuse to give in to that. My social media is not that version. But most people see on social media is the highlight reel of people's lives, and they think that's what winning looks like. You're like, no, bro. Yeah, you just saw the sexy highlight reel. Most of success is not sexy. Not fucking close. It's a grind, and you're working your ass off. That's the part that should be shown. But normally what we see is people next to nice cars and nice houses and going out to nice dinners. And then people think, well, that's what winning looks like. Well, yeah, that's 5% of it. Showing you that isn't gonna help you get there. But that shit will get tons of likes, right? But the guy teaching somebody how to get there, although this is finally changing, not nearly as interesting to people. Why? Well, because most humans are fucking lazy. The difference between giving a man a fish and teaching a man to fish. If we were to be real, most humans would rather just be given a fish. Give me a fucking fish. The problem is if I give you a fish, who's in control? Me. And most humans aren't even aware enough to realize that. If I teach you how to fish, who's in control? I'm willfully giving you freedom. Why? Because you won't need me after I give you the information. Which is why I say all the time, go to people who are going to teach you how to think, not what to think. How to think, you become independent. What to think, you become dependent. What excites me about this time is this isn't going to happen because of one person. It's going to happen because humanity says enough is enough. Like there have been lots of teachers throughout the ages who have come to try to wake humanity up, and they create little bastions of hope and seedlings that pass in through history, right? Krishna, Buddha, Christ, they all came to teach very specific truths that got passed on. This next season, I fully believe, isn't going to be a single human, but humanity is going to rise up and say, enough is a fuck enough. And if we don't, as Einstein was asked the question after creating the atom bomb, if you're familiar with Einstein's story, he was part of the Manhattan Project, created the atom bomb. So he was interviewed about it, and he lamented the fact that he built it because he knew what he was fucking building. Atom bomb is nuclear warfare. And he was asked, he was like, well, how do you think World War III is going to be fought? Which, by the way, we are literally on the precipice of World War III, if anybody isn't paying attention. If we go to war, it will be World War III. China siding with Russia, and everyone else is going to side with NATO. China and the United States are the biggest superpowers in the world. If they go to war, it's going to be fucking nasty. I'm hoping consciousness fucking boots us out of this, where somebody gets smart enough to go, hey, motherfuckers, let's not repeat history. Can we all get in a room and figure this shit out? But if we don't, we're going right back into World War III, which is hilarious to me, because who's going to be fighting World War III? Men or women? Well, maybe everybody, but it's fucking men. There's an important point I'm trying to bring up here. Ukraine goes to war last year. Guess who was free to leave the country? Women and children. Guess who was not allowed to leave the fucking country? Men, right? So I do a video a few weeks ago that went viral, and I was talking about the fact that men, the masculine, is designed to protect and to provide. Some woke-ass people were like, yeah, that's the old school. We don't need that anymore. I'm like, yeah, you're blind as a bat if you think that. We don't need that anymore? I hope to God we never need that. But we may very well fucking need that. And they may not be here because we're not creating men anymore. We're creating fucking boys. Boys who are raised by girls, who were taught by girls. And they don't know how to fucking fight. That's going to be a big problem if we end up in war again. The good and the bad of that is the next war will not likely be fought with foot soldiers, at least not in the beginning. It'll be fought with technology more than foot soldiers. But the inevitability of that, if it goes too far, is what's going to happen to technology. It will be destroyed, and then how is it going to be fought? Foot soldiers. I'm hoping none of that happens. Honestly, I'm just giving you an objective take on where the fucking world is right now. If you study history, we easily could be in World War III within the next decade. Easily. If somebody doesn't fucking put people together and get in a room and go, guys, come on, what are we doing here? This shit's got to stop. Working on it. Here we are. So you got to know where you're at. So Einstein was asked, how will World War III be fought? And he said, I'm not sure how World War III will fought, but I'm pretty certain World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Which is his way of saying, if we don't figure this shit out, we're going to reset the entire human history again, which I think we've done at least 3 times. About every 10 to 15,000 years, we fucking then start over again.